Solo always does shots first. Singing yup no.
Yup, yup.
You're singing yup no.
Chucha.
Yup no.
No.
At the Cantina Club.
Okay, so we have gone through number 6 so far. We're at our number 5 position on the number 5 on the countdown, and Corellian's going to start us off on this one. And
Okay.
let's take a second and guess here, Gundark. What do you think he's going to have at number 5? Tell us what your list is so far. You've had
My
it.
list so far: number 9. Number 9 is Phantom Menace. Number 8 is The Last Jedi. Number 7 is Attack of the Clones. Number 6 is The Force Awakens.
It's gonna be Revenge of the Sith.
I think it'll be. I would guess Rogue One, or no, Return of the Jedi. I think it's gonna be Return of the Jedi.
Okay. And you're both wrong. It is, in fact, Rogue One.
Oh, I had it right the first time.
Yeah, you did. Shouldn't second guess yourself. So Rogue One comes in at number 5, and I actually wish I could put this movie higher because I absolutely love this movie.
I'm surprised you put it this low.
Absolutely love this movie. It was such a great surprise, and I get so much out of it every time I watch. I watched it again yesterday. I think I watched it a week ago. Before that, I've been in a real mood for it lately too. But I love it. I honestly, the way I sum it up, I think that honestly, if we had the ability to, this would have been the kind of movie that we would have all made, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if we were given the ability to. We'd have made a film very similar in tone to this. That's what I like about it. I do like the tone of the film very much. It's dark, but not so dark that it's takes you out of the whole Star Wars milieu, as it were. And I just love seeing stormtroopers and there's like a labor camp and there's stormtroopers there, and it's just I don't know. And it's dirty, it's gritty like Star Wars. I like that. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's some problems, but overall, I just love this film. I absolutely love it. So it does come in at number 5. There's I've got 4 that I consider better, but it definitely is firmly planted at number 5 with the potential to move up without the potential to move down.
What's your favorite character from Rogue One? Since I was surprised by your affection for R2-D2, I mean, do you have a favorite? It's an ensemble cast, so you really, there might not be a favorite, but
you guys are gonna laugh, and you're gonna be like, "Of course it is." But
is it the Imperial officer?
Director Krennic.
Director Krennic. Okay, I thought it might be that Imperial officer who questioned everything Director Krennic said.
So great. And I have no problem with the CGI in this film. I know that's one of the things that people tend to pick on when they get to this film, is that if they don't really like it that much, they're like, "Oh, that just took me out of it. It was so fake." I'm sorry, I don't think it was fake at all. I thought it looked really, really good.
You mean Tarkin?
Yeah, Tarkin, and then Leia at the end.
Yeah.
And come on, this whole movie was worth it just for the Vader, fanboy scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
We're
about-
going to do.
Did you like
Go ahead.
Did you like the World War II combat film aesthetic to it?
I do, but I know you and I have talked about this. The only thing that does take me out of that film is the helmets that the infantry use for the rebellion. They're too World War II like. Because when I see that, I think, oh, World War II. It's not like World War II.
Too on the nose.
It's too on the nose. Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I don't like it. But I do like the overall World War II aesthetic to it. Yeah.
Yeah, the design of the movie was great when you consider all the misses they could have had in there, and they had a bunch of good decisions. That was a poor one, but
and it's the only Star Wars film where basically everybody dies. I mean, that doesn't happen in Star Wars, And I thought it worked.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Corellian's number 5. Is it me or Gundark next?
I'm gonna step in because Rogue One is my number 5 too.
Okay.
So, and I'll say, in addition to what Corellian's saying, I thought I love watching the film. I watched it. I don't know how many times we went to see it in the theater, but I could go back and see it again and
I
again.
think it. I think we saw it the most different formats of any Star Wars movie we've ever seen. We saw it on the IMAX Dome. We saw it on the old school 70 millimeter IMAX, and which the Dome was too. And then we saw it in IMAX and in just a regular like three. We saw it in 3D, which was not good. That's another story. But unfortunately, we saw the 3D version the first time.
Yeah.
It was just way too dark. The theaters don't turn the bulbs up enough for that. That movie was real darkly shot, and it just didn't come off well. But in IMAX, and the IMAX Dome was amazing.
Yeah, the
I'll
Dome
stop
was
stepping
wonderful.
on you.
Yeah, because it's a spectacle film, and that's what I liked the most about it. The first half I thought was too slow, and the the initial connection between the members of the Rogue team wasn't strong enough. But when you get to the second half of the film that centers on the battle at Scarif, and you get the moving connection starting to develop, the bond developing between the characters as they're facing death together, and you begin to realize, oh my God, these people are really going to die in a Star Wars film. It really gets emotionally moving.
And they're not puppets
Yeah, yeah.
for the most part.
They're not the wooden marionettes from Attack of the Clones. Um, and then you get the wonderful space battle, which to me, I think that space battle is even better than the attack on the Death Star in New Hope. I mean, that may be sacrilege, but
It is.
everything about it was so tense. And the moment whenever the Rebel fleet arrives out of hyperspace, every time I see that, I jump. I can't help but jump. And then when you're aboard the cockpit with the X-wing fighter as they're making the dive towards the shield gate, and you're in the cockpit with them, especially seeing that on an IMAX screen or on the dome screen is just so heart-stopping. And then the wonderful emotional moment of seeing Princess Leia receive the Death Star plans at the end, the CGI didn't bother me, maybe especially because that scene was more poignant in the wake of Carrie Fisher's death, and seeing her give that moment of hope at the end and looking at a young Leia and thinking about her whole career, that was very moving. But then the scene to end it all is Darth Vader's attack on the rebels at the end.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
we
mean-
are the spoiler-free crew, all of us, right? You went to
Yeah.
that spoiler-free, didn't you?
Oh
Alan?
yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Corellian?
I don't, yeah,
We had no idea. We
yeah,
had no-
exactly. I mean,
No.
I watch trailers.
I thought the movie
I
was
watch
over.
anything that's officially released, but I don't look at
Yeah.
any of the theories and fan ideas of what's going to happen. And oh, this information leaked. I don't even read that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that.
And to go
No,
ahead.
go ahead. That scene induced the only Star Wars related nightmare I have ever had in my life.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
a real
didn't know
nightmare.
this.
I dreamed that Darth Vader attacked my dog. Darth Vader.
Which
lit a
dog?
Darth
saber.
Vader attacking Ewoks?
He attacked my dog, which is a Ewok, an Ona Ewok, and he attacked this Ewok, and he
So
was
you
gonna
really
cut
can't
him.
blame him, is what you're
He was
saying.
gonna cut him in half.
More power to you, Darth.
He was gonna cut him in half, and he said, "No, he must die." I was gonna cut him in half,
Whoa.
and I raced forward rather than running away. I raced forward, and I grabbed
right.
the Ewok away, and I booked it out of there. And I thought of the guys at the end of that film who go toward Darth Vader whenever he ignites the saber.
I know,
They have the
right?
courage to just go towards him, and that's just like the ultimate courageous moment in a Star Wars film.
It's got to be just like, let's get this over with as quickly as
Yes,
possible.
yes. There's no hope. They might as well go ahead and be stuck down.
There's a momentary singeing burn, and then nothing,
Then nothing.
But also,
unless he pins you to the ceiling and.
I mean, I think as horrific as that scene was, it had the converse effect to the Padme effect in Attack of the Clones, where at the end, when Darth Vader is standing looking out into space, I just wanted to rush forward and bow down at his feet and beg him to marry me. It was like that. The power
Even if he
of the
demands your
dark
dog?
side. Yeah, quicker, easier, more seductive. The power of the dark side. So that scene just made the whole thing for me. But the space battle too is just spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sit through 2 hours of anything else to see
Yeah.
that at the end for sure. All right, you got anything else to add on that? So we've
No.
got Rogue One sweep so far at number 5. What do you guys think I'm going to put at number 5? I've done Attack of the Clones, Last Jedi, Phantom Menace, Revenge of the Sith.
I'm
Getting
gonna.
old. We
I
can't
say
think
you're
of the
gonna say
Star
Rogue
Wars
One.
movies.
I'll say Rogue One.
I will too.
No, incorrect.
Oh.
Yoda's Mystery Balls led you astray.
Force
I'm
Awakens.
going with Force Awakens there. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
And number 5. Honestly, I like Force Awakens a lot. I wasted a whole lot of time going to see that movie over and over again while I was in the theater because I enjoyed the theater experience.
Me too.
It should be higher than number 5. It should be a solid number 4. It's a saga film. The saga films should be just run straight down the line, but that's not the way Star Wars has worked out for us. So yeah, I got to put it at number 5 because it has been damaged. The Last Jedi, the only movie with enough power to reach back in time and destroy and damage another movie. That's absolutely what happened for me. From the first time we saw Force Awakens, after we sat through the however many other 6 other movies, and we did the marathon, and it was preview night, didn't have any spoilers, didn't know anything about it. As soon as it was over, some in our crew didn't like it immediately because of stuff that was done with the original trilogy characters, and especially the Han and Leia relationship being broken up and it's kind of being darker, showing a darker edge. But I liked it. But I went along for the ride because the new characters were good. The feel you got from it was like being in a Star Wars film for the first time in a long time. The scene where the Millennium Falcon, is doing its thing through the Star Destroyer, and the new characters are doing their thing, brought you into the movie big time. The movie comes to a screeching halt for me. Ratars, or whatever he says. You tell me you don't have reptiles on this ship. And it's like, this whole movie just stops right there. And we get this long sequence with this straight out of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with the bug bladder beast of Trawl. Then we go to the Maz Kanata castle. And she could have been a lot worse. I don't have a big grievance against Maz Kanata or anything, but just didn't work for me. She's out of place in this movie. It's slow. I wanted to know more about those characters that they introduced, why they do what they do. Because even Finn is a contradiction because he comes off as a pacifist at first, but he mows down his own troops a minute later in order to escape, and he enjoys it. He gets off on it. So, which I understand. We all want to shoot stormtroopers. It's fun. But he was one 5 minutes ago, right? And those could be some of his buddies there.
Some of his friends,
If they had edited that to where he shot the bridge out, or the officers up there that were saying, hey, stop that TIE fighter. And then you can understand his anger towards the officers and stuff, and the people calling the shots. But The Force Awakens skipped all the stuff that was important, like what is the First Order? What are they doing? Who are the heroes? What are they doing? It makes a huge mistake that J.J. Abrams always seems to make, and I love his TV shows, I love a lot of his stuff he's done, of putting off the most important stuff to the next installment and punting on anything super important. Punt. Show us something pretty, get a good laugh, a good performance out of people, which is bored. But they punted on everything of any importance, and now I'm suffering the burn from that because The Last Jedi didn't deliver. But what I was going to say is, on that first preview night, when everybody was either griping or exhilarated about it, they said to me, "What do you rate it?" And I said a 7. Because they could have done so much more worse. I said, but I can't give it a rating now because talk to me, future me, when the next movie comes out, because this whole movie, its entire definition and what it means is left hanging for the next one. And so it sunk. It would have been higher on this list. It could have been lower. All these spots I could have jostled around some more. But honestly, if I go see, we saw The Force Awakens before The Last Jedi in the theater, it was night and day. I enjoyed it again. I had a great time. I was psyched looking for that first scene in The Last Jedi, and as soon as The Last Jedi started, it was a downward spiral. And unfortunately, there's nothing we can do now. Carrie Fisher's gone. They killed off Luke. They killed off Han. I still don't know why Rey is doing what she's doing. She just wanted to go home. She just wanted to go home, and she wanted to find where she belonged. That's not a great reason to be doing all the stuff she's doing. She ran. When they offered her the lightsaber, she ran away. I still don't know why Why would she even want the Force? It seems like her reaction at first was very reasonable. That's insane, and I don't want any part of it. Why is she the chosen one? And why does she want to do it? What are her students when she passes along the Jedi knowledge and they ask her, "How did you get started in this, and why? Why do you want to do this?" What's she going to say? So the protagonist, I don't understand. I do not get it. And J.J. Abrams punted on that, and he who shall not be named, who directed the next one, to me gave me nothing. He gave me nothing. That was the theme of that whole movie. Nothing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I put Force Awakens at number 5. I still like it, but The Last Jedi is such a powerful downer that it has reached back in time and bitch slapped every Star Wars movie that came before it, except for maybe Rogue One, and they've all suffered because of it, and The Force Awakens most of all. So, at number 5 we got Rogue One, Force Awakens. We're gonna move on to number 4. I believe it is Gundark's turn.
Okay, that's a good segue because I'm going to put Force Awakens at number 4, and I have a really different perspective than you.
Well, don't take everything I said as a negative because I dwelt on. I'm sure I dwelt on the negative, and what I said. It's number 5 is pretty high for me. Pretty good ranking for me.
Yeah.
We went to see it a ton of times.
And 9 movies is
not
really
totally
good.
knocking it. Yeah.
I put it right below the original trilogy. It has a special place in my heart for several reasons, and I think again it's part of having lived through the incredible cultural mania surrounding the original Star Wars in 1977, and it was just really cool to witness something like that happening again whenever this movie was coming out, and it made me think of my dad asking me when I was a kid, when I found out how many times we'd gone to see Star Wars, and him asking me, well, are you going to continue to love these movies like this when you're 50? And I said unequivocally, yeah. And it turned out to be
wow.
true.
That's great.
True, yeah.
And so
That's
when this movie
fantastic.
comes out, I'm like staying on the internet all night trying to get tickets to the earliest showing possible for all our friends. We're waiting in line at 3 a.m. at a theater to try to go to a marathon of all the Star Wars movies leading up to the first showing of this movie. And then the movie itself was just so much fun for me. It seemed to capture the spirit of the original trilogy. I loved all the new young people, and I really wasn't expecting. I was there really for the original trilogy characters. I wasn't expecting to love the new young leads as much as I did. They had such charm and charisma. They were so well performed by the actors. It was all very well cast. But by far, I have to say the best moment for me, despite what's happened with The Last Jedi, the best moment for me was the conclusion whenever Rey climbs those Jedi steps and meets Luke Skywalker for the first time. And I will never forget the feeling of experiencing that in the movie theater with a room full of Star Wars fans eager to see Luke Skywalker for the first time in 30 years or whatever, and having him turn to the camera silently, looking at Rey and then looking at me. And it was like my hero of my life, I haven't seen in 30 years, is turning and looking at me. And then her seeing a girl present the iconic lightsaber to him as like a gesture towards Jedi training in an Arthurian moment. I mean, it called together Arthurian legend and Star Wars mythology in total silence, where the actors are just expressing everything with their faces. That was an incredibly moving moment for me, where I felt kind of like that, the face of the hero with 1,000 faces suddenly becomes your own, that kind of moment. And I will not forget
Sure.
that.
We've all had that, haven't we?
right. Ryan Johnson be damned. He cannot steal that from me. I will. Last Jedi, all the problems that we had with it. That moment is like one of the great moments in my movie going experience, and nothing's going to
I'm
take that
glad
away.
you can hold on to that because
Yeah,
it definitely got smashed for me.
yeah. Well,
Bad.
it was a shock in Last Jedi to see Luke toss away the saber and to see the questioning of the whole heroic story arc, but it still can't. It just doesn't take away the moment of seeing the hero that you've waited for turn and look at you, and have another character step forward. And I still hope that that character will become something more. I kind of agree with you that she's nebulous still at this moment, but who knows what they're going to do in the next film. Last Jedi, I don't know where they can go from where they left off with it, but the end of Force Awakens, just in the way that it was so epic with Luke, that kind of made it all for me.
Okay, so at number 4, we've got one vote for The Force Awakens. And you've said many times that it was a big deal for you, like when Rey picked up the lightsaber, or when the lightsaber came to her through the Force. This is one of your top moments in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And us as boys and then men, we always had the male side of Star Wars, and that it was tailored for us. And so we had years and years of those kind of experiences and everything. So I have no qualm.
I always identify with Princess Leia, but Luke was really the protagonist, and I love Luke.
Yeah.
Luke is my all-time hero, but to have a moment where the Jedi that you admire can be a woman, and when you had female Jedi who had no speaking roles in the prequels,
Right.
and I wasn't familiar with the Clone Wars female Jedi characters on the Clone Wars television series, but to have a woman step forward in that moment when the lightsaber goes to her instead of to Kylo Ren in the snow, when he thinks he's the grandson and he's going to take his rightful inheritance, and it goes to her instead, was just such a liberating moment. But then her standing before Luke and taking the role of basically King Arthur facing up to Merlin and presenting the sword and the stone was just like a revolutionary mythological moment for me. And for the first time, I really felt like, I didn't realize that I really wanted to be a Jedi Knight before, that made me want to be a Jedi.
2 years later,
Yeah,
it's not such a good deal anymore.
Yeah, 4 years later. So that movie, the magic of that movie will not be taken away by anything else, because that's something that I experienced with friends and with other fans, and that was a good experience.
All right. So that's your number 4 pick.
All right, so my number 4 is episode 4, and that is Return of the Jedi. No, don't make the face. Don't make the face.
That's
Gundark.
just my normal face. Oh, her face.
Gundark, yeah. She made the face.
I guessed it.
Okay, come on. This is number 4. That means it's really, really amazing, and I love this film. Absolutely, it is.
Sure, you do.
I do. Hey, if I didn't like it, it'd have been like number 8. It would have been down in Last Jedi territory.
Right.
No, I love the film. Obviously, it's one of the originals. It's one of the ones we grew up on. It's one of the things that established this entire genre, or this entire, Star Wars universe. And it's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I've got problems with it. Otherwise, it would be perhaps one position higher. But
you could have just stopped when you said it was amazing. I love it. The end.
Yeah, no.
Moving on.
I can't do that because not to belabor it, but obviously my biggest problems were Ewoks, the wussification of Han Solo.
Hey, what's going on?
Those are the 2 biggest things right there. I just can't.
Wait a second.
And I still have been watching that movie for decades now, and I still just on some of those Han lines that are so bad, I don't know. It's like it was so perfect in the first 2 films, and it's like, huh? What happened to him?
Wait a second.
Who castrated him?
Okay. Wait a second.
Can you give us an example of a Han Solo line that you didn't appreciate?
Oh gosh, it's been a while since I've seen it. Let me think.
Because I'm wondering what your young self would say about it as a film and stuff. And oh, that's right, we do have the review that your young self wrote for it that appeared in the Cantina Club Tatooine Times newsletter. So,
we will be reading it.
You sure you don't want to revise anything you have to say at this point? Because it was glowing. I'll be honest. It was glowing.
Yes, as most films when you first see them do.
Right.
And the time goes by and you're like, oh wait, now I get it. That wasn't near as good as I thought it was. But yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can't draw any specific lines. To me, it's just the overall. I don't know. Just
wait a minute.
Han.
Wait a second.
I gotta throw a flag on this. You can't draw any specific lines. You can't pull a Han Solo line out of thin air from Return of the Jedi or any other movie. You the master of all dialogue from all films. You're gonna sit there and tell me that you can't just pull up a line from Han Solo from Return of the Jedi. I gotta throw a flag. You're gonna have to face the Bull Gullet at some point because there's some untruthfulness going on here. You can recite Raiders of the Lost Ark is a one-man show, so I know you can pull up a line from Han Solo.
That is a one-man show before.
Right. I've witnessed part of it. And I knew it could continue through the whole thing. I knew there was no doubt in my mind.
And it was stunning too, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I was stunned.
All right. So that's my vote. I think we've talked about it enough.
Okay. All right, that's number 4, Return of the Jedi. That leaves me, right? At number 4?
Yeah.
Number 4 for me is Rogue One.
Okay. Nice.
And Rogue One is just really solid. If you look over this list of Star Wars movies over time, some of them haven't fared well. Some of them weren't that great to begin with. They all have major flaws. Rogue One does have flaws, but I think people nitpicking it just weren't really willing to give it a chance. It just didn't sit well with them for whatever reason. That's fine. But if you just go in and enjoy it as what it was supposed to be, a standalone Star Wars movie, a little way to fill some plot holes that have bugged people for 35 years, it's really, really a good movie. Stacking it up against the others, the flaws don't take it down the list for me like many of the others. The stakes aren't as high because it's not a saga film.
Right.
There's none of the Skywalkers in there except for Vader and Leia at the very end.
Yeah.
So you can enjoy it for what it is. The Solo movie coming up, I don't know, because the title of the film is Solo. It's got legacy characters in it. A lot of stuff is going to be, I'm sure, a little bit controversial. The decisions they make about the origins of all these different things. But for Rogue One, I thought overall it did not hurt anything. It didn't do any damage to the legacy of Star Wars. It gave us a lot of cool characters. It gave us Krennic. It gave us Jin's father. Does anybody remember his name?
Galen Erso.
Galen
Erso. Yeah. Galen Erso, one of my favorite characters in the film. It gave us another great droid. It has several moments in it that are just really epic Star Wars moments that for once somebody just had fun with it, and actually went for it without saying like, I'm going to reinvent the wheel and make this, all the Star Destroyers are going to be prototypes of a type we've never seen before. It held up to the integrity of the moment for the most part. And we're going to do a meeting on our favorite moments from Star Wars movies, and Rogue One's going to have at least one. Even if we narrow it down to a top 10 Star Wars moments, the moment where those
two Star Destroyers crash.
Yeah,
I knew that was going to be yours.
It is like a fanboy dream when we were kids, where we
absolutely
the ships and everything.
That's just an incredible moment.
It's in the theater. It's just so overwhelming, and seeing it on the IMAX dome, we actually stayed because of that one scene. I think to watch it again. We stayed all night and watched it twice on the IMAX dome. That scene was just so overwhelming. It was like you were right in the middle of a Star Destroyer collision. It spanned the whole. They projected it on the whole dome. It was just. It was just incredible. And so anyway, and I don't have a problem with the characters in Rogue One. They could have done a much better job overall of the whole movie being tighter. the Saw Gerrera bit is kind of a waste of time to me. We should have learned more about all the characters. But Donnie Yen is awesome, one of my favorite actors and martial artists. And having him in there was a stroke of genius. The other Chinese actor too, which I forget his name, but he's great. And so all the casting was perfect. This was one of the first Star Wars movies to really become apparent that there's an agenda going on with diversity and everything. Didn't bother me, in Rogue One at all.
Right.
It's perfectly fine. They probably could have had more alien characters, actual that don't look human, because that's what Star Wars is populated with, all these people. They would be the rebels, because you don't see them in the Imperial ranks.
No.
But no, the diversity didn't bother me at all, and it could have just been tighter. The characters could have been more fleshed out. But anytime you're throwing all this Imperial technology on the screen, and you know what the stakes are, it's good times. It's fun. And the Vader scene at the end, a lot of people have been bitter crybabies about it, saying it's fan service, just like with Princess Leia. Who cares? I mean, it's fan service.
Who cares?
It's fan service. Yeah, he didn't, levitate down the hallway. It wasn't so obnoxious. He even swung the saber like I would expect Vader to swing the saber from Empire. And
exactly.
It was beautiful. For spoiler-free people, we were just blown away by that. And the Princess Leia scene at the end, not perfect in execution, and it doesn't make perfect sense with the next movie. For her to be like lying through her teeth to Darth Vader when he just walked out and saw the ship leaving, but she's trying to get away with that lie. But it's just a tribute. Just get over it. There's nothing wrong with a small tribute, a small fan service.
Absolutely.
Makes a point of entry for us to get into the story and stuff, and it connected. It really felt like part of Star Wars because of all that, and great to see Vader get his due. So number 4, and I don't see that movie's going to stay right near the top in the middle for me for a long time. I think it hold up well, and so that brings us to 3. We're at it. We're at the top 3 Star Wars movies. And we will start with Corellian.
All right, so number 3. Wait for it.
Hey, what's going on?
Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. It has actually made it all the way up to number 3 on my list because this movie is awesome. I love this movie.
Okay.
It's one that, Gundark said it best earlier. It did age well, and it got better through multiple viewings. I liked it from day one. Also, I have to agree with Greedo. It was the only Star Wars film I have not seen on opening weekend. I think I saw it maybe the Monday or Tuesday, but that ultimately boiled down to work schedules because I was working on the road at the time, and I was up in Cleveland, Ohio, of all places where I saw that. But wow. I love that. I love this movie, and I watched it again after not seeing it for, I don't know, several years. I hadn't watched it in probably 5 or 6 years, and I watched it again last year, and I just remember being blown away, going, I don't remember it being that good. But it just, to me, it just really, it makes the prequels worthwhile.
Okay.
Because it finally brings it full circle. We see, Anakin turn. It's so dark for a Star Wars film, which that's still, I think, is a good thing. Star Wars can use a little dark as well. I love it. I just love so again, not perfect, but so strong. I love this film.
What's kind of your favorite part of it? Is it the closing of the Vader loop or whatever, the Anakin Vader loop, or you a big fan of Obi-Wan?
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan is, I've always loved Ewan McGregor's portrayal. So, he's very strong in this film, so that stands out. And the whole closing of the loop, as you said, of the Vader story of the turning to Vader was really poignant, I thought, and just really well done. Yeah, it's visually, it's a stunning film too to me. It's by far the best of the 3 as far as the look of the film.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Okay, so we got number 3, top 3, Revenge of the Sith. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
Of course.
Yes, there's nothing. I believe that's probably me next. So for number 3, even though we've gotten kind of off on our time and stuff, but or who goes next. But 3 is a tough decision for me, because conventional wisdom would say Empire Strikes Back, and then probably, I mean, people have put all kinds of movies at number 2 of the Star Wars movies,
Wait a second.
whichever one is their favorite. I did more of a cross of an emotional list with a practical list of thinking of them as good movies or not, but overall it's an emotional list for me.
It'll work.
But at number 3, I'm putting Return of the Jedi.
It'll work.
This could easily be number 1 for me.
Wow.
It could easily be number 2.
That's what I predicted was number 1 for you.
It could easily be number 2.
Wow.
But yeah, it could easily be any of those spots. But let's face it, it's very flawed. It's the most flawed of the first 3. It's also one of the most satisfying of those 3, probably for me. But the main reason I like it is because it's Luke's movie, and people that weren't there don't understand what we went through waiting 3 years between each film.
Yeah.
And as the Cantina Club, we gathered every piece of information out there that we could find. But people just didn't have spoilers in magazines back then. They would release little bits of information at a time to promote it. A series of photographs would come out. You remember we were obsessed with "Is the caption true?" for the picture that came out in Starlog. I think it was Starlog where it said something like Vader takes Luke before the Emperor.
A manacled Luke.
Yeah,
Luke.
Luke, that's right.
Yeah, and this is the first we'd heard it. Like, whoa, Vader's taking Luke to the Emperor. You know, we were blown away by this concept. You know, like, no, that can't be true. But because we were in fear that Luke was going to, die, and that all the different characters could die. Anyway, there's the movie, the plot, the pacing, all these things have flaws. The dialogue. Even Yoda's reappearance feels like it's there to just remind the audience 3 years later, who are kids, what the Force is and what Luke's about to face. He just kind of runs through a greatest hits, and then he all of a sudden drops this bombshell about the sister. So that scene isn't perfect, but I still love that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in Star Wars. The Jabba stuff, either you like that or you don't. It's become iconic in much the way the Darth Plagueis speech is from Revenge of the Sith. It's become bigger than the movie. Everybody knows Jabba, and they have their own ideas about it. It exists in a realm beyond Return of the Jedi now.
Yeah.
And personally, I had issues with all that stuff, but I also like it. I don't really like the special edition. That's my major drawback now for at this point for Return of the Jedi. Is I just wish they would get rid of most of the stuff they added. I wish they would put back in the scene where Luke assembles the lightsaber in the hut and get rid of the silly stuff they threw in, and the CGI Sarlacc and all that. It's not horribly offensive, but there was no need for any of that stuff. My main knock on Return of the Jedi is not. I mean, I understand as a Han Solo big time fan that you're disappointed with maybe what he did in that movie.
Yeah.
He was so strong in Empire Strikes Back that was kind of his film. They had to make some room for the other characters, and they could have done a better job. But I understand what happened.
Yeah.
But my major knock is the way the movie looks. The movie looks like a made-for-TV film to me. Like, the cinematography doesn't look like Star Wars. Nothing in there looks like it was shot on film. It looks like it was one of the first Star Wars films shot on video or something.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, the lighting and all that stuff it just looks harsher. Looks more like a British TV film or something. I just don't know what was going on there, because the cinematography was always a strong point in Star Wars. And you watch some of the outtakes from the other films, and even from that film, and it always looks stupid in the outtakes. But by the time they get it to the screen, the silly stuff has a look and a feel to it. It becomes alive. Well, Return of the Jedi, I'm not sure that always worked out. And some of the most epic moments are also, you can see them almost scaling back the investment in it. Like, we're getting out of the Star Wars business. And I'll never understand why they threw in stock footage of the Death Star 1 at the end of the movie when Death Star 2 is about to blow or whatever. And it cuts to
that always bugs
soldiers
me.
running around, and it's just them marching from the first movie. Really?
Okay.
They underestimated how much we were paying attention. We were really paying attention. We saw that stuff. So, but despite all that, in over time, that stuff to me becomes more lovable. When I go see the movie, I don't have a problem with the Ewoks. I wish they weren't there. I wish they were a little different, tweaked a little different. But they're there. They fulfilled the purpose. If you're going to have commercial stuff in your film, make the rest of your film that much stronger to make up for it, so that people don't focus on the fact that they're selling you teddy bears. And that's where it fell short in a lot of ways. They should have made the rest of the movie that much stronger. If you're going to have the teddy bears defeat the Empire, show the rebels doing it too. Don't just make it look like the rebels took the Crack Legion and just wiped the forest floor with them. people like Corellian will never forgive you for that, and that's how your movie drops down the list. But anyway, I've gone on.
That's how you end up behind a prequel film.
Right. And I love Return of the Jedi in a lot of ways. I've been waiting for the sequel for decades, and I still have yet to really see it, I feel like. And wasn't a big fan of the expanded universe. So in a lot of ways, my Star Wars fix with those original trilogy characters has never been satisfied. And I have to go back and look at Jedi as sort of the last Star Wars film for me.
It'll work.
Of any real significance, and closing that arc of those characters that I really cared about. And it's been tough since Last Jedi came out. I haven't been able to watch that movie all the way to the end. So I just get too weirded out by it, turn it off. At some point I'll be able to. But the fact that they hit the reset button and put all the characters back to square one, destroyed everything they worked for, it's just a bitter pill. And
yeah, I agree.
But anyway, for me, Return of the Jedi, number 3 could easily be number 1. The original trilogy movies are all almost interchangeable to me. So, got Gundark.
Okay, number 3, Return of the Jedi as well. And I'll be trivial on the flip end of this. It's Luke in the sexy little black Jedi outfit.
Okay.
And that's the truth. I mean, I know I'm being sexist and objectifying Padme in the black leather bustier, and then being willing to put Luke in a sexy black outfit. But it's Luke Skywalker, okay? And I've been in love with him most of my life, and I love him for other qualities, as well. Having a black, black sexy outfit.
You be more careful.
Doesn't hurt.
I am sensing a trend here, though, because you were riveted by Ben Swallow, the guy with no shirt.
The last mistake.
You were riveted by him, and now you mentioned Luke in black immediately.
No, the nephew can't hold a candle to his uncle.
I'm Luke Skywalker.
We'll never get Ben Swallow. That name out of my head.
But aside from that, it was cool to see Luke actually demonstrating his Jedi powers finally. And again, putting it, what Greedo said about putting in the context of seeing these movies in real time when they were originally released, and how long we waited between the films, and finally getting to see our hero show Jedi powers. And then even more than that, what was more meaningful for me was getting to see him demonstrate his moral growth when he shows himself superior to the Jedi Masters by choosing to confront his father with compassion, with a determination to forgive. And I think he shows himself as the real chosen one, who's better than the Jedi Masters who went before him, because he has the capacity for self-sacrifice, and it's that ends up saving the galaxy, rather than the determination to kill Darth Vader. I mean, Obi-Wan's run around and telling him that, lying to him first and saying that your dad was a noble Jedi who was killed by Darth Vader, and then telling him that that's true from a certain point of view, and now you have to go kill your father. I expect you to go kill your father, whenever you've been taught by Yoda that giving into anger, fear, aggression, you got to use the Force for defense, never for attack. I mean, what the heck were they expecting him to do when he goes to confront Darth Vader? And the fact that he decides that I'm not going to do it, despite Darth Vader and the Emperor egging him on, and the Emperor just will not shut up in that film. The Emperor didn't know what was in his best interest. It just kept going on and going on. Every time Luke was about to give in and turn to the dark side, the Emperor step in and make him recognize what he was about to do.
Yeah,
But making that choice in the end, that he'd rather sacrifice himself and the pacifist move of throwing the lightsaber away and then declaring himself a Jedi, whenever he's tossed the lightsaber away, that was just an awesome moment. And it was spectacular seeing it as the outcome of the growth of the character that you've watched grow up in real time while you're growing up. Because I think about how Luke's growth was about the same amount of time as us. We were kids, and then we're going through adolescence, and we get to adulthood right about the same time that he makes that big final step. So that was really, really moving. I'm kind of with Greedo, where the original trilogy might kind of be interchangeable for me, despite all the flaws of Return of the Jedi. And the Ewoks are too cutesy, although they kind of, you can put up with them after a while. And
Okay.
I actually own 2 Ewoks now, so
You be more careful.
my Pomeranians. So I've kind of reconciled myself to the Ewoks.
Well, their ecosystem was destroyed in the aftermath of the Death Star destruction, so somebody had to adopt a few so they could survive.
Had to save them from the genocide. But the Emperor too was a cackling annoyance to me in that film. But the prequel trilogy kind of saved him from that, and so I guess maybe those flaws put it down as number 3 compared to the other 2 original trilogy films.
I am Luke Skywalker.
Okay. So we've got Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi. We're to number 2, and I think I'm going first, even though we're messed up in the order here. So number 2 for me, this is another a little bit against the grain, and I think if you look at most people's lists, mine's going to look a lot different at the top, but I put Empire Strikes Back at number 2. It's an incredible movie. It probably should be number 1 from a movie making standpoint. Somebody somewhere who's a critic could write a paper or whatever dissertation that would prove me wrong. But my list is more emotional than practical, and Empire is brilliant in so many ways, and having Irvin Kershner direct it, I still wish up there with the biggest tragedies of Star Wars to me, along with picking, He Who Shall Not Be Named to direct the last movie, was that they didn't have Kershner come back and direct Return of the Jedi, and
Agreed.
and also invest a little more in that film and let him put the kind of work that he did in Empire. That being said, Empire's fantastic. There are flaws in the movie. It's not perfect, but it has really grown over time. When we saw it, we loved it. There was things that were shocking to us. I always thought Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia would end up together.
Wait a second.
I thought the farm boy and the princess was a done deal. Just from everything I knew about fairy tales and Galaxy Far, Far Away. So her getting with Han Solo was, of course, when you really think about it, what else are they going to do? It made a ton of sense. It was their chemistry, and it came out perfect. But still, that was shocking. Them leaving it on a cliffhanger with Han Solo was very shocking. The revelation, still, who's ever going to top that?
Yeah.
Nobody ever. So yeah, I'm talking myself into putting it number 1, but everything about Empire is just so brilliant. Even the storyboards, the concept art. It's one of the first. I don't know that I ever saw storyboards for Star Wars like I saw for Empire. Empire, every moment is storyboarded so brilliantly. You can just get a book of all the storyboards and go frame by frame through the movie. The people who did those storyboards, brilliant artists. Their concepts are, I think they're just as much responsible for how great the movie came out as anybody else. And without Empire, there wouldn't be anything else today, because Lucas put all of his own money into that. ILM was new, Lucasfilm was new. He had to have it be a success.
Yeah, if that film had tanked, the whole franchise would have gone away, probably.
So whatever people want to knock George Lucas for, future Lucas and everything, he made some brilliant decisions back in the day. And one of them was allowing Empire Strikes Back to be controlled enough by others to come out and be not just a movie that would financially cement all of his industry and everything, but also cement in our minds that this is a movie series worth investing in, worth coming back for, and worth continuing for, to this point, forever so far.
Yeah.
Can I
so
step
anyway,
in there and say something in response to that? You got to think too that Star Wars: A New Hope was the greatest moneymaker at the point that Empire Strikes Back came out, and maybe I guess in the history of film, except maybe Gone with the Wind. And it was had such cultural impact to follow up such an incredibly popular film with something so dark like Empire Strikes Back, and to put financially everything on the line for his company. And it took real guts to do that, and it's
the last
more like
mistake
that
you'll
movie
ever
was an indication of his dedication to story over anything else, dedication to the mythology that he was building over anything else, because that was a big risk
You be more
to take, and to have it
Absolutely, it
end with
was.
cliffhangers like it did, and to be so dark, and to reveal that the hero's father is the villain. All of those things were astounding steps to take. So yeah, you do got to give him credit for that.
Absolutely.
Hey, what's going on?
Okay, so Gundark, what do you got at number 2?
I have A New Hope.
Okay.
And
You gonna actually call it A New Hope? You going with that?
no, Star Wars.
You be more careful.
Purist.
The Star Wars. Well, here, okay, and I'm going to tell you why. Empire for me is number one, but and this almost
Spoiler alert.
this could almost be number one in place of Empire, especially because historically, I mean, just think about this film is on, I think, the top 100 greatest films of all time for the American Film Institute list, where Empire Strikes Back does not appear on that list. And I think Empire Strikes Back is actually aesthetically a better film, but New Hope belongs on that list, and it really kind of battled for spot of number one with Empire for me because of its historic impact. It jump-started the popularity of blockbusters. Think about film franchises. The impact culturally was just incredible living through that. It may be difficult for people who weren't around when that movie first came out. When you think about the cultural zeitgeist then, the disillusionment, the Vietnam War, Watergate, and the feeling that people wanted to believe in the possibility of heroic action again.
That is
and
correct.
that movie gave them the ability to believe that again. So you had people giving ovations and shouting cheers in the final scene of that movie, which I'd never experienced and hardly ever experienced again in a movie theater since the opening times that we went to see New Hope.
Raiders was the only other time I can think of that had that powerful an impact.
Yeah, I agree with that.
On an audience.
Yeah,
and I think it was the audience as much, like you said, as much as it was the movies, because the audiences were ready for that.
Yeah.
And the audiences don't act like that anymore, and they didn't act like that before that point.
They needed it, and I don't know that a contemporary audience that was not around, young people that weren't around then, could know what that felt like to need that and to have a culture-wide experience where just about everybody went to Star Wars and talked about it, where it filled that need for some kind of hope again. So it's an appropriate name to give it the subtitle A New Hope later. Yes. But the historical aspect is really important, but of course Empire's going to be number one for me, so let's talk about later.
Your skills
All right, but you're skipping ahead and you're stealing the thunder.
Yeah.
Because we still got Corellian's number 2 here. I think I know what it is, but
Oh, really? Do you think?
yeah, I think it's Star Wars. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, it's A New Hope.
That is correct, Commander.
Sure. Hey, we were there when they changed the title. We didn't have any warning. Remember? We just sat down and there it was.
Like,
A New Hope. We're like, is this a
Episode
different
4?
movie? I
What?
was like, what's going on?
What the heck?
Because first it said Episode 4, then later it said A New Hope, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because at first it was just
Yeah,
Episode
it was
4,
just
and then
Episode 4, yeah.
yeah, and we were like, what? 4? What? And then, but I'd read the Starlog article, so I knew there was supposed to be 3 episodes before that. So I was like, oh, that's cool. They're going to do more. And then later, it was A New Hope. It's like, wow, when is this going to end? Them changing it, and it never ended. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
stepping all
so
over.
that has to, not at all. That has to be my number two. Um, it's just there's something about that film. It's so amazing. It's one of those moments in my life when I still remember exactly where I was and what I was doing the first time I saw it, exactly how I felt when I first saw it. Um, I actually went home that night and had dreams about the TIE fighters and the X-wings having dogfights. I remember waking up going, whoa, what is that? I've got to see that again. That was incredible. Like it was more than, and again, this is kind of like what, to Gundark's point, it was more, it wasn't just a movie, it was an event. It was this feeling that you got from this film that, it was something deeper than just, oh, this is a new movie I saw. And it obviously it's made an effect on my life, because here I am all these years later, and we're still talking about it, and we're still watching it, and we're still getting the same feeling from it. So it definitely has, spoke to generations, and that film just opened a whole new avenue of imagination for me. Is it probably the easiest way to say it. Everything about that film I just love. The special edition aside, again, I don't hate, and it's not hating on the special editions. I do like what they did in a lot of aspects, but just the film as itself, as a whole, was so good, and just those characters, and just the power of myth, and just everything that it brought up was so needed. Like Gundark said, it was so important for the mid to late 70s that
is
it just
correct.
hit at a great time. It's one of those things that, had that movie been made in the mid 90s, would it have had the same impact? Probably
you
not.
wonder. Yeah.
But
In the 80s, they called it Willow.
yes.
Wait a second.
In the 90s, I'm sure I'm gonna have to think about it. I'm sure there was another one that was called something else.
Okay.
It was the exact same movie.
So that's my vote for number two.
All right. So for number two, we have The Empire Strikes Back and 2 votes for Star Wars. So it's pretty obvious what's going to happen next. At number one, let's go with Gundark.
Empire
first.
Strikes Back, like I said.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I would agree with like American Film Institute rating Star Wars among the top 100 American movies ever made, above Empire, because of the historical and cultural importance, Empire, I think, is a better film. And it's the one I teach a course in science fiction, and it's always the one that I show as kind of representative of the mythology, and it's the one the students ask for, and it's the one that gets students to sign up for the course whenever they find out it's going to be about Star Wars and we're going to watch that movie. It's the best aesthetically, I think, because of the photography is beautiful. Like you talked about, Irvin Kershner's direction is just outstanding. But I also think I give it kudos for its thematics, for taking the risk of deepening the thematics beyond the simple good versus evil dynamic of A New Hope, by actually dealing with the potential for very deep evil within the hero himself. I remember that, speaking about cultural impact, I remember the kind of cultural trauma in the United States after the release of that film over Darth Vader revealing that he's Luke's father. And we were just kids, and I remember adults talking to us and saying, could that be true? I was saying, he had to have lied. It was a lie. He's a liar. It couldn't be true.
That was my first reaction. I remember when we first, I was like, he's lying.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah, the shock of it, and then the willingness to take that risk on George Lucas's part, it just made the storytelling that much more profound.
Good
And then
work,
adding to the
Commander.
overall story arc of the hero, not just having to confront the monster, the external monster, but the possibility of evil within himself. Was what's most important about that film. So for me, on all kinds of levels, that film becomes number one. And that was just reinforced for me when we watched the marathon of Star Wars movies in the theater to introduce The Force Awakens. And
I think I even said that. I said it becomes obvious when you watch them all together in one setting which one is the superior movie.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is
And
correct.
we're all sitting in a room full of Star Wars fans. We watched that movie, and it just seemed to stand head and shoulders above the rest when it's got scene after scene with a puppet. You know, Mark Hamill's
Yeah.
performance acting next to a puppet, and Frank Oz's performance puppeteering and giving the voice of Yoda. When you think that they took the chance again to use a puppet for those incredibly dramatic periods that give you the foundation of the force and the mysticism of the overall mythology, how important those things were, to take a chance to give that to a puppet was amazing. But seeing all that in the theater again with Star Wars fans, and then right before Force Awakens comes on the screen, we turn to each other and we're like, oh my God, I'm scared. I hope Force Awakens will be good, because Empire Strikes Back, I don't know if I can watch Force Awakens after watching Empire Strikes Back. We were so scared because it was just such a stunningly good movie, seeing it again on a big screen after all those years. So it remains number one for me.
Good work.
You can kind of thank Jim Henson too for the Yoda thing, because depending on what you read, but credible stuff that I've read said that Lucas asked Henson to do it. Henson was too busy, and his whole production company's too busy, but he said, we can give you Frank Oz for that amount of time. And so we could have had Yoda sounding like Kermit the Frog, or any number of things, but it became such a huge impact with Frank Oz's performance. That guy should be a billionaire just for that one. Can you imagine how much money that one character has made?
Oh,
He and Vader, are those the two top characters from Star Wars as far as marketability?
In the last poll that they did when Force Awakens came out, I think they were the two top characters.
That is correct.
And I want to say too, you were saying Empire for number one. There's never been any better depiction of the Force than there was in that film.
Right.
They've never topped it.
Nope.
They've never expanded upon it in a really truly satisfactory way. All they've added is what Rey said in Last Jedi. It's you persuade people and you move things around in the air. The philosophy behind the Force was brought up by Obi-Wan in Star Wars, and then just expanded so incredibly powerfully and beautifully by Yoda. And again, anybody that wants to overanalyze it and say where all this comes from, and it's a bad representation of Eastern religions or this or that, get over it. Have fun with it. It was powerful. It was brilliantly done. John Williams doing the score when that X-wing is raised up, and the look on Yoda. Yoda's alive in that scene. Absolutely as much as anybody else in all those movies. And you're right. I mean, what an incredible achievement. So anyway, we've got.
Does it not bump up to number one for you?
No, it does not.
Okay.
There's still a movie out there. I got to give it to do. So who's next here? I think it's you, Corellian, right? Or is you want to go at the end?
I'll go at the end.
Okay. Well, number one for me is Star Wars.
That is correct.
There's so many reasons, and I could put Return of the Jedi here. I could put Empire Strikes Back here. Nothing else would ever go at number one. It would be absolute sacrilege to put anything but one of those three movies at number one. There will never be enough time go by or another Star Wars movie come out that will ever take the number one spot than one of those three original movies for me. So let's just get that out of the way. That being said, you ask me 2 weeks from now, maybe I'll change my mind, but I'm pretty solid that Star Wars is number one. I go back to that time we watched all the movies together and we were seeing The Force Awakens, and you're up all night. We thought we had a hotel room. We thought we were all going to go crash in the hotel room. We didn't. We stayed through the whole thing. And it's grueling at parts, but we did it. And that was the true death pact, I think.
Good work.
Anyway, Star Wars did not hold up as well as many of the other films. I was even more into like Revenge of the Sith. But I have seen Star Wars countless numbers of times. When I was a kid, I used to count it, and it was obscene the amount of times I saw it in the theater. But we didn't have much back then. It was like, are you going to play with your pet rock? Or are you going to go see Star Wars? We would go to the Village Cinema or whatever, one of those theaters, the Memphian, and pay for the earliest showing and sit in there all day and watch it over and over again and wait for our favorite parts. And I can't, when I was thinking about if we did a meeting of the top moments of all the Star Wars films, Star Wars has got at least 10 that you almost can't de-escalate them down the list. You know, TIE Fighter attack, Han and Luke rescuing Princess Leia. Han shoots first. You know, Obi-Wan's revelation to Luke in the hut and giving him the lightsaber. The destruction of the Death Star, that's just massive. The very opening moment where the ships come over your view, and back in '77, it didn't matter who you were stunned by that. Even if you were a cynic, if you didn't give a crap about movies, you were dragged along by your friends, you didn't like science fiction. Every single person sat there and went, "How did they do that?"
Yeah, nothing had ever looked like that before.
No, and nothing had the scale of that and the intensity of that ship. You know who the bad guys are instantly, because that ship goes on and on and on and on, and it sets the tone visually perfectly in a way that Star Wars hardly ever achieves again. I've been waiting and waiting. I really think Crate in The Last Jedi sort of came close, but a lot of people diss that for being Hoth Part 2. I really don't think so. I thought it was brilliantly done. But there's very few epic cinematic moments in all the Star Wars movies put together that just come across like a Ralph McQuarrie painting. You know, Ralph McQuarrie, and that moment and other moments that movie do so well. It is slow nowadays, you know, because it's a different era. People with a short attention span aren't going to get into it as much. But it's still number one for me. It made everything happen. Emotionally, I'm still invested in that movie all these years later. You
cannot escape your destiny.
So yeah, it's number one. And when I think about how much had to go right for that movie to even exist, it's just a countlessly long list of determination of everybody involved, coincidence. Half the people involved didn't even believe in it, didn't understand it, didn't know where it was going. And could that be done today, except on a small scale? You know, could it have been done before? I really don't know. One guy, Alan Ladd Jr., I think was his name.
Yep, Alan Ladd Jr.
Signed off on that and kept signing off on it. And every other executive turned their back. So without him, there would be no Star Wars. And who knows what he was thinking or what he saw, but because everybody saw something different. But to have Ralph McQuarrie, John Williams, Dykstra, the cinematographer, whose name I unfortunately forget right now, but he's an Academy Award-winning cinematographer, to have it shot in England with all these talented people, all the effects people, and just all done on a shoestring. Marcia Lucas, right, George's wife, had a hand in editing. Editing's brilliant in that movie, just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, they won the Academy Award for editing,
but
I think.
so many things had to happen for all those talented people to come together. Again, Lucas gets bashed a lot, but he obviously had some kind of eye for picking out talent and some kind of ability for drawing that talent to him and getting what he wanted out of it. Because without people like McQuarrie, Vader would look stupid. You know, the Millennium Falcon would have looked like a space shuttle or something. I mean, we wouldn't be here. It would be what was that movie? Battle of the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
Battle Beyond the Stars. It would be something like that.
I forgot.
Your lack of faith disturbing.
And the casting is brilliant. Everything about that movie is amazing, and it's the reason everything to do with Star Wars exists, and it needs us to do. So I'm putting it at number one.
Okay.
Your skills are complete.
Corellian,
That is a very good argument. Yeah.
Corellian, you're up last for your number one spot. We all know what it is. So we can just we're going to call it this one, right?
Don't make me destroy you.
Okay, I just want to make a point here before I actually announce the name of this film that everyone already knows. So everybody is talking about the top three are interchangeable. The original trilogy is interchangeable. To quote Darth Vader, there is no conflict.
Good work.
It is.
You just opened a can of whoop-ass with that.
It is.
Using our own words against us, and you expect it to just, there's no conflict.
That is correct.
I see what you're doing.
I'm speaking for me.
I'm sorry, I say it again because I stepped on it, and you want to have your moment where you set it in stone and Corellian declares the number one Star Wars movie of all time. I'm going to give it to you right here. Even though childlike Corellian in the Cantina Club newsletter clearly stated that Return of the Jedi was the best of them all. So you flip-flopped a little bit, my
That is
friend.
so much finger pointing right now.
You're using my words, saying that they're interchangeable and making that into a bad thing. So I'm going to use young, idealistic, with excellent taste, young Corellian trailer.
With excellent taste.
Yes. When you said there's no question, it has
taste.
much more of everything else we've seen come before that makes it the best Star Wars film. But anyway, so you're entitled to change and your convictions, they are what they are.
It's the last mistake you'll
What did
ever
they say
make.
about cream rises to the top? The Empire Strikes Back is so far and away the greatest film possibly ever made to me.
Impressive.
It's got everything that I've ever wanted in a movie. It's like we've already talked about it ad nauseum. I get it. I'm not gonna say a whole lot here, but just there's a feel and a vibe from that film that has never existed in another film for me. Greedo already said it. Yoda was not a puppet. Mm-hmm. Yoda was alive. That is an actual living, breathing creature in that film. There's no way in the world you could look at that and tell me that's a puppet. Compare that to the original version of Phantom Menace, whatever that garbage was with Yoda. Right. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It's like you could get a stock puppet and make it look better.
Don't fail me again.
That's a disgrace.
Absolutely. But there's just a feel, and if there's ever a film that gets close to perfection as this one, I don't know what it is. Possibly Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What about Alien?
Aliens is in there.
I know how to push your buttons.
But Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark have always kind of vied for my number one all-time film position. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have to go with Empire Strikes Back. If it's competing as my favorite film of all time, it's got to be my favorite Star Wars film.
It'll work.
Do you think Han having such a strong part in that is one reason why?
I think that favorite? It's just part of the overall mix,
and how strong the Empire was in that one. The Empire was the Empire was so strong in that film.
That's like at the height of their powers, basically. Yeah. That was just everything about that film was strong for me. Starting out on Hoth and just with the Wampa attack, and then you've got the AT-ATs, which just was unbelievable. You guys will remember the first time we saw that film, and we were sitting in like the second or third row, and
you had to get up and go back.
So intense for me. I literally got up and went to the back of the theater because I
still remember you bailing on me. You said, "I gotta go back." It was when the snow was coming off the ceiling, and it was like.
Yeah.
We were at the park. We were at the Park Theater, which had the quadraphonic sound.
Yeah.
It had stacks of speakers in the room with you. They weren't even like in the walls. They were in the room with you, and it was the whole place started shaking. And you went, "I'm gonna go back for this. I don't think I can take this."
Oh, so no film has ever had that kind of an intense impact on me. And I literally can't find anything I don't like about that film or thought could have been better. Honestly, it's got Boba Fett. It's got the greatest, still to me to this day, the greatest lightsaber duel ever on film.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you.
It's just incredible from every single moment about it, So, yeah, I absolutely love it. It doesn't get any better for me.
You cannot escape.
Which is ironic because it's uncanny feeling because it's almost the exact same words that you used in your review of Return of the Jedi when you were a kid, except it's just the one little phrase changed. Literally word for word. You're just repeating the same mantra that you just switched films.
Don't make me destroy you.
It's a growth process.
You be more careful.
Okay.
So at number one, we have The Empire Strikes Back from Gundark, Star Wars from Greedo, and The Empire Strikes Back in lieu of Return of the Jedi for Corellian. So all that remains.
Gundark, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can I lodge a protest?
I don't know where
You can throw a flag or whatever.
Can I throw? He threw a flag on me earlier.
You object.
Yeah.
Your
I think he's trying to lead the witness here.
Your objection is duly noted.
You cannot escape your destiny.
Your time will come. We will pull that article out. And all the love and enthusiasm that you once possessed will come gushing forth.
I already volunteered to read it word for word.
You cannot escape your destiny.
I want you to read it like an Imperial officer, though. in the Imperial officer voice.
Absolutely.
The only thing that's left really is to tally the official, what our official Cantina Club order of the films is. I'm surprised. What I'm taking away from this is I'm surprised how all three of us had The Last Jedi so low. No pun intended, so low.
Good work.
But overall, you can't really go wrong ranking these films. There's people that are going to put The Last Jedi at number 2 or 3 or 1 for them. They're a different generation, you know. And when we were kids, you couldn't go see Black Panther, Infinity War, Solo, all these movies in the same year. You know, just week after week.
2-3 weeks apart.
You know, stuff wasn't going on. So anyway, these days, if you have a miss, people feel like you just swing again, but to us, there's a legacy there that was injured with The Last Jedi.
That is correct.
We are going to compile the list at the end of the video. I will put it in, and that will become the official Cantina Club ranking system. If for some reason we, after 40 years, begin adding members and they want to vote, we will take that into consideration, and the list will change. Also, we've got a movie coming up in how many days?
Roughly, a little over 2 weeks.
Yeah, called Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Okay.
According to Bargullet. But very quickly, this is our official list for right now. It's subject to change, but it seems like a pretty solid list. 9, worst Star Wars movie, Attack of the Clones. 8, The Phantom Menace. Number 7, coming in lower than we thought, The Last Jedi.
Oh.
Number 6, The Force Awakens. Number 5, Revenge of the Sith. Helped a whole lot by Corellian's high vote there at number 3.
Traitor.
At number 4, we have Rogue One. We can all agree it's a good Star Wars film. The first 3 spots are all original trilogy movies, as it should be. Number 3, Return of the Jedi. Number 2, Star Wars. And number 1, The Empire Strikes Back.
Speaking of things as it should be.
Yes.
You just said it.
Okay. I thought you were going to continue with the thought there.
No,
Speaking
you
of
just
things
said
as
it.
they should be, silence. Not actually speaking, just thinking them and not sharing my thoughts with anyone. All right. Well,
All right. I guess that's a
anybody
wrap.
who watches this, we thank you. You can hit like and subscribe if you want to support us. We're assuming we're going to put this stuff on YouTube and other formats. We appreciate comments, and leave your questions for the Borgullet in the comments, and maybe if Borgullet is patient enough, your question will make it through Corellian's interpretations and madness to the Borgullet. Anybody have anything they want to say?
Nope. Just enjoyed the very first episode. Hopefully you have many more to come.
Yeah, it was great being back again.
I'm glad we're all still alive here today to do this. It's been a good 40-year run for Star Wars and us, and may the Force be with all of you. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Always.
Always.
Singing your note.
This meeting of the Cantina Club, May 2018, is officially dismissed.
At the Cantina Club.
Your skills are complete.
God.